Although the members of the Panchatattva plundered the storehouse of love of Godhead and ate and distributed its contents, there was no scarcity. For this wonderful storehouse is so complete that as the love of God is distributed, the supply increases hundreds of times. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. A pseudo-incarnation of Krishna once told his disciple that he had emptied himself by giving him all knowledge and was thus spiritually bankrupt. Such bluffers speak in this way to cheat the public, but actual spiritual consciousness is so perfect that the more it is distributed, the more it increases. Bankruptcy is a term that applies in the material world, but the storehouse of love of Godhead in the spiritual world can never be depleted. Krishna is providing for millions and trillions of living entities by supplying all their necessities. And even if all the innumerable living entities wanted to become Krishna consciousness or Krishna conscious, there would be no scarcity of love of Godhead, nor would there be insufficiency in providing for their maintenance. Our Krishna consciousness movement was started single-handedly, and no one provided for our livelihood. But at present, we are spending hundreds and thousands of dollars all over the world, and the movement is increasing more and more. Thus, there is no question of scarcity. Although jealous persons may be envious, if we stick to our principles and follow in the footsteps of the Panchatattva, this movement will go on unchecked by imitation swamis, sannyasis, religionists, philosophers, or scientists. For it is transcendental to all material considerations. Therefore, those who propagate the Krishna consciousness movement should not be afraid of such rascals and fools. Om Gyantimidandasya Gyananjana Chalakaya Chakshurun Militam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Bandeham Sri Guru Sri Judha Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavanscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatham Sahakana Raghunathan Bitham Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahakana Ladita Sri Vishakan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vansha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Bhavanibhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaura Bhakta Brinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Although the members of the Panchatattva plundered the storehouse of love of Godhead and ate and distributed its contents, there was no scarcity. For this wonderful storehouse is so complete that as the love is distributed, the supply increases hundreds of times. I'm very grateful to be with all of you, Bhaktivedanta manner. Thank you for being here. Today we have been given this verse, Adi Lila, chapter 7 of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, entitled Lord Chaitanya in 5 Features. Text 24. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami in this chapter is revealing the identity as well as the mission of the Panchatattva. The one absolute truth who appeared in 5 diversified forms for one purpose. The one purpose to teach people of the world how to taste love of Godhead, the ultimate goal of life, by their own example, and to distribute that love of Godhead to everyone and anyone who's willing to accept. Srila Prabhupada, in his purport, is focusing especially on this aspect of distributing love of Godhead. How the more you distribute, the more the supply increases. This is a completely opposite conception of material consciousness. In material life, what we have, if we give, we lose that much. If you have $100 and you give $99, then you only have $1 left. But in spiritual consciousness, according to this analysis, if you have $100 and you give $99, then if you look in your account, you have $999,000. And you would have had $1 million if you gave the other dollar. Because this supply is a supply of grace, which is infinite. Golokera Premadana Harinam Sankirtan. The Panchatattva is giving us this Sankirtan movement. And the Sankirtan of the holy name is descending from this spiritual world. Therefore, it is of a completely different nature than anything of this material existence. Material existence, whatever exists, is being gradually destroyed by time. Dukkhalaya mashashvatam. It's a miserable situation because everything is temporary. Everything will be lost. Everyone will die. That is 100% unconditionally guaranteed. When you get these guarantees for your car or for your medical insurance or whatever it may be, if from an honest perspective, it should be told 100% guarantee this will be destroyed. 100% guarantee you will die and everyone you love will die and everyone else will die. That's material existence. There is no exception. There has never been an exception on the material platform. Abrahma bhuvana loka punar avartanorjana. Mamu peta tukontia punar janmanavit. Krishna tells with all assurance, as the manufacturer, the creator, he knows how everything works. Not only he knows how it works, he knows why it works. From the highest planet of Brahma down to the lowest, all are places of eventual suffering, because all are places of death. Brahma lives about 311 trillion years. It seems like a long life. From the perspective of eternity, it's not much longer than our life, because eternity has no beginning and no end. Still, he must die. He must lose his position and everything he has materially, down to the insignificant ant. That is the laws of nature. What we lose, we have that much less. But because the spiritual world is not affected by material time, everything is eternally increasing. In the spiritual world, nothing is stagnant. It's like that in the material world too. It may appear to be stagnant, but actually everything's going down. Even if it appears to be going up, actually it's going down. We may be in business thinking we're making so much money, we're getting more and more, and that's the illusion that we're getting more. But actually, what's really happening is your lifespan and everything is going down. It just appears to be going up for a little while. But even that going up just makes us forget that it's going down. But in the spiritual platform, everything is constantly increasing. It's achintya. It is inconceivable. This is a very important philosophical principle to be understood. This achintya shakti. Inconceivable, incomprehensible, unimaginable truth that governs everything in spiritual existence. Inconceivable means the material intelligence cannot fathom it. With faith, we may accept it, but really we can't fathom it because it's totally beyond our experience. How everything is always increasing. Because everything is directly connected to Krishna and Sri Radha in the spiritual world. Nothing is seen separate. Their energies are reflecting their own rasa between each other. That's the spiritual world. Sri Gokulananda and Sri Radha, the one absolute truth, are eternally in two forms to exchange love. And for that love to have supreme ultimate pleasure, it's ever increasing. And therefore everything that exists in the spiritual world, which is to facilitate that love, is of the same nature. It is ever increasing. Krishna's beauty is always increasing. You can never get tired of looking at Krishna for all of eternity, because that beauty is always increasing. And if something is full and complete, how can it increase? This is inconceivable. But that's why we love Krishna, because he's inconceivable. His pastimes are ever increasing. And his love for his devotees is ever increasing. And the devotees' love for Krishna is ever increasing. There's no loss of anything in the spiritual world. And when there's an apparent, in the material world, where there's an apparent gain, you're actually losing, because time's actually taking it away from you, even though you think you're getting more. But in the spiritual world, even when there's an apparent loss, it's actually increasing. The vipralamba bhav, love and separation. When apparently separate from Krishna, the union actually is deeper. In the feelings of separation from Krishna, the awareness and the unity with Krishna is actually increasing. Even more than in union. And how could something be more than something else when they're both infinite? Doesn't make sense. Two infinite things, yet one is more. That is the spiritual world. Ever increasing, inconceivable. When the Panchatattva descended into this world, they have brought the Prema-dhan, the treasure of love of Godhead. The love of Godhead of Goloka Vrindavan. That is what they brought. This treasure house of that. And they are tasting the contents. And as they're tasting, they're in the ecstasy of that love. And they're tasting more and more and more and more and more. They can't stop chanting the holy names. They can't stop feeling the ecstasies of love of Krishna. Because the Panchatattva, they came in the role of devotees. Although the absolute truth, Radha Krishna, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna in the mood of Radha, who comes in the form, in the role of a devotee, to teach by example. Nityananda Prabhu Balaram is doing the same. Gadadhar Pandit, he is Srimati Radharani in the spiritual world. He's coming in the role of a brahmachari, devotee. Advaitacharya, Sadashiva, he's the source of Karunadakshayi Mahavishnu. He's appearing as a Brahmin devotee. And Srivas, Narada Muni, is appearing like a little Brahmin, worshipping his Lord, his beloved in Navadvip Dham. It's interesting how Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu manifested in these 5 features to teach the world. because apparently they're so different. The Panchatattva. Lord Chaitanya, he was a grihastha who became a sannyasi, and such a strict sannyasi. We were speaking yesterday at Radha Landanishwara temple from these verses where Prataparudra Maharaj wanted to meet Lord Chaitanya. King Prataparudra was a completely surrendered soul. And Lord Chaitanya tested him for two reasons. The Lord tests devotees for many reasons, according to who we are. For a devotee who is struggling for spiritual advancement, we're tested because those tests help to give us the chance to really take the essence of the process very seriously, especially when tests are beyond our control. Those tests are not to make us depressed or despondent. They're meant to make us humble and enthusiastic, that ultimately only Krishna could save me. That's the only reality that ever was, that only Krishna could save me. But due to the ahankar, the false ego, we fall into so many different stages of illusion, even with the conception that I'm a sincere devotee, that we think that I'm the doer. God does help those who help themselves. Srila Prabhupada, if there was one thing, it was many things, but if one of the things that he really was not liking was laziness. I have seen some letters back in the 70s where he was writing to leaders, do not allow any lazy people to be here. People are not here for free eating and sleeping. They are here to serve with dynamic enthusiasm. And what was Prabhupada's example? He was 70 years old, 71, 72, 73, 75, even when he was 80. His teenage and 20-year-old disciples couldn't keep up with him because he had so much enthusiasm to spread this treasure of love of Godhead throughout the world. So laziness is not good. We should be very enthusiastic. But at the same time, we should try in the service of Krishna to resolve the problems that are happening in our own lives and the lives of other people and the lives of our society. But ultimately to know that I'm just an instrument of Krishna if I do it right. Krishna's the doer. Punar Mushtaka Bhava. Krishna can make me a lion. Krishna can make me a little mouse. And if I'm proud as a mouse, he could make me a little flea on the mouse. And if I'm proud of being a little flea on the mouse, he could make me a little bacteria in the stool of the flea of the mouse. Trying to get a little poetic today. Or he could make us into Brahma. That's Krishna. He can do whatever he likes with us. But in whatever situation, we are the servant of the servant of the servant. And when the tests come, they are wonderful. They are not only wonderful, but they're necessary. Sometimes we get so caught up in the particular situation we're dealing with, which we have to deal with responsibility, that we lose scope of the whole picture. But Krishna, when he's dealing with his devotees, always sees everything in the reference to the whole picture. And the whole picture is what is going to make this person into a pure devotee? What is going to make this person an instrument of pure devotional service? Sarva dharman parityaja mam ekam sharanam vraja. That means to actually be surrendered to Krishna. We speak about surrender. And sometimes we think we're surrendering. And sometimes we kind of are surrendering. Surrender is beyond just doing what you're told or asked. Surrender really means, Krishna, you're my only shelter. I have no one but you. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as the leader of the Panchatattva, Ainanda Tanuja Kinkaram, he's praying, let me just be a speck of dust at your lotus feet, O son of Nanda Maharaj. So when tests, when trials come, it's a necessary situation to help us to actually understand our helplessness. Even when we may be in a most dynamic way doing the needful, still to realize this helplessness and to surrender to Krishna. Because Srila Prabhupada, he wanted us to cultivate pure devotional service while we're doing whatever we're doing. Not to lose scope of that. And Maya is so powerful that she will even take the forms and the items of devotional service to trap us in her network of illusion. If we read and become learned in the philosophy, the Siddhanta, if we become proud that I know better than others, then she's using our philosophy to keep us trapped. If we're playing the mridanga or singing beautiful kirtan and we're thinking, I am so much better than everybody else, look at me, then she's taking the highest form of purification and using it as a trap. If we have a position of serving devotees, whatever it may be, and that position infatuates our ego and causes us to not be respectful to others, then that very position, which is totally sacred and divine, Maya is using it as an instrument to trap us, to drag us down. So tests are important if we understand them in proper consciousness, because they help us to actually realize, not just intellectually, but deep inside, that I really need Krishna. Grounds us, sobers us. And Srila Prabhupada, he writes that there's a Bengali proverb that the mother teaches the daughter-in-law through the daughter. Because the daughter-in-law doesn't really know what's going on in the new house she's living in. And if the mother instructs her too directly, she might not understand. So when the daughter-in-law is doing something wrong, the mother may say to the daughter what she's supposed to do, and the daughter-in-law listens. And she learns through that. Actually, the daughter doesn't need to learn anything. She already knows. She's lived there all her life. I don't know in marriage if you people use that type of psychology, but maybe you should consider it. 'Cause Bengali, very universal principle. Because I'm a Swami, so I never had in-laws or anything like that, but I hear so many stories about these things. So Krishna teaches the world through the devotee. Krishna puts Prahlad Maharaj, Dhruva Maharaj, the Gopas, he puts his devotees, Ambarish Maharaj, through so many different situations to teach the world how to respond. So here is Srila Prabhupada on Jaladuta. He just had 2 heart attacks. Severe seasickness. He was just coming to New York City. He didn't know if anyone was going to be there. He didn't know if he had any place to stay. Who in Calcutta in 1965 ever heard of Butler, Pennsylvania? Yes? I was born and raised in Illinois. And the only time I ever heard of Butler, Pennsylvania is because Prabhupada went there. In fact, I lived in Pennsylvania for some years, and I never met anybody who heard of Butler, Pennsylvania. It's a very insignificant, unknown place. And he didn't know if anyone was going to be there to collect him, to bring him there. Can you imagine, at that age, with that health, just about to get off a cargo ship in a strange country? He didn't know what immigration was going to do. And yet, his prayer was simply, Krishna, if you give me this treasure of bhakti through my words, then only will they understand. He had that complete faith. He had faith in the inexhaustible power of Krishna's mercy. And he was teaching the world that we're not the doer, however great we are. We're just instruments of the power of Krishna. And we're getting that through in our society because Srila Prabhupada's getting it in such a magnanimous, inconceivable, empowered way. We can get from him that inexhaustible power. But as soon as we think it's our own, we lose it. We become disconnected. So Srila Prabhupada is he's citing evidence of a religious personality who claimed that I've given my disciple everything, now I have nothing left, I am bankrupt. This is because, you see, the Mayavad conception is Jagan Mitya, Brahma Satyam, that all that really is of true existence, of eternal reality, is just the all-pervading impersonal truth, Brahman. And within this world, even the things that help to bring us to that platform, they're ultimately all temporary. Their conception of prema, or love of God, is just a temporary, step on a ladder to bring us to that platform where there's of nirvishesh, of just oneness. Gyan, bhakti, vairagya, prema, rasa. Some of them understand these concepts, but they're just temporary ways for different people to reach that oneness, which is beyond everything. And all the Shaktis, or spiritual powers, are also just within the realm of this universe. So, to give all the spiritual potencies we have to somebody, because their conception is, they're all ultimately material. We give them, they're lost. Parasya Shaktir Vivadaiva Shruyate. But the Vaishnava philosophy understands from the Vedic literatures and from the revelation and realizations of the greatest saints that spiritual energy is ever existing. Prema Pumarta Mahan. The Purushartha Siromani, Lord Chaitanya said, there's Artha Kama Dhamma Moksha. Beyond moksha of millions of times is prem, or love of God. That is the ultimate eternal reality of the spiritual world, and it is ever increasing. And when it descends into this material world, it is of the same nature, it is ever increasing. Yes, if you give anything material, you have that much less. But this is an ever-increasing spiritual reality, love of Godhead. The more we give, the more we have. There is no bankruptcy. There is no material conceptions. Everything dwindles in this world because everything is temporary. And that principle is one of the great and most important differentiating points between personalism and impersonalism. The eternal reality of love of Godhead, the eternal reality of bhakti, the ever-increasing nature beyond the realm of material existence, of loving relationships between the jiva, the soul, and God. And the Panchatattva came to distribute this. And it's important how their example, it's not that they're just distributing it. First, they're eating it. That's what it says here. They are eating it, and they are tasting it, and they are becoming absolutely intoxicated eating it and tasting it. And while they're eating it and tasting it, their desire to distribute it becomes ever increasing. As you taste love of Godhead, you want to give love of Godhead. How is that? Because as we love Krishna, we love everyone, because everyone's part of Krishna. And even more than that concept, you see, there's this concept. Mamaivam zo jiva loke, jiva bhuta sanatana. Which is every living being is a part and parcel of Krishna. So if I love Krishna, I will love every living being, because they're all part of Krishna. I'll see Krishna in their hearts. But even greater than that is, yes, we see every living being as part of Krishna, but we see how every living being is dear to Krishna. Krishna wants even his naughtiest little children in this material world to ultimately come back to the standard of enjoying with him in the spiritual world. Lord Chaitanya was especially pleased with Nityananda Prabhu when he delivered Jagai and Madhai. They were very restless children. Sometimes we portray them in our dramas as being just really stupid, drunken people. Let's go, Jagai, Madhai. Everybody's laughing like this. But if you were to meet Jagai and Madhai, you would not laugh. They were ferocious. They were scary. People were not laughing at them. People were scared to death at them. People in Malvad, some could not sleep at night, thinking Jagai and Madhai may burn our house tonight. They may come and kill our children tonight. They were worse than any monsters in the movies today. They were really bad people. They were Ravana, Kumbhakarna, Hiranyakashipu, Hiranyaksha, all those potencies, all that meanness, all that wickedness. That's who they were. So every living being is Krishna's children. And to please Krishna, to show our love for Krishna, we naturally want to distribute this love of Godhead to the world. So they were tasting, and as they were tasting, as they were eating, they were becoming more and more and more intoxicated. And how were they tasting? Especially through coming together to perform Nam Sankirtan. As they were doing Kirtan, they were tasting the sweetness of the holy name. Rupa Goswami gives us this beautiful verse of what he's tasting, what he received from the Panchatattva. The two syllables Krishna, how can I even try to explain it? When the two syllables Krishna dance on my tongue, I want unlimited tongues. When those two syllables enter into my ears, I just desire millions and unlimited ears. And when it enters into my heart from my ears, it totally conquers my life. With pleasure, with spiritual happiness. And it's ever increasing. And they're chanting and they're dancing, and as it's increasing, so is their desire to distribute it to others. Because that's love. Love is not to take, love is to give. When we're eating, we're kind of taking, yes? But as a devotee, when we eat prasad, the idea of eating prasad is with the energy of the prasad we give to Krishna by performing devotional service for the pleasure of Krishna. That's the purpose of eating prasad. Whether it's halava or samosa, or whether it's dal, whatever it may be. This is Krishna's mercy, and we're eating it. And we may enjoy it a lot. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in his beautiful prayer, he said, let me take this prasad to my full satisfaction. Well, what does it mean to my full satisfaction? That doesn't mean just, okay, I'm enjoying. I'm just going to eat more and more because I'm enjoying. We're not supposed to eat too much. Of course, the Panchatattva, they could eat unlimitedly. And Prabhupada explained that Bhima, he could eat a lot because he could perform Herculean tasks. You see, everything he ate, the energy, it just didn't sit in his stomach and become indigestion. It empowered him to do service. So in the same way, when we're taking prasad, the energy of the nutrients of that prasad is not just meant for me to enjoy. Yes, I'm enjoying. Maybe, maybe not. The idea is the energy of that prasad is going to be used to give to Krishna, to give to Srila Prabhupada, to give to the Vaishnavas, to give to the whole world. And what are we giving? We're giving mercy, prasad. The mercy in the form of food is meant to come through us, to manifest through us in the mercy of giving bhakti, giving seva, giving Krishna. So the Panchatattva, they are eating and they are eating and they are enjoying this Nam Sankirtan. Their tongues are, Krishna's dancing in their tongues and Krishna's dancing in their ears and Krishna's dancing in their hearts. And as their joy is increasing, simultaneously, their enthusiasm to distribute it with love, with compassion to everyone is increasing. Panchatattva were very diversified four features of the one absolute truth. We were explaining how Lord Chaitanya, he was not, you may have thought I forgot about this, he was not going to meet Maharaj Prataparudra. Actually, I did forget about it. Krishna is the source of remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. So he was very strict. And there was Nityananda Prabhu. He wasn't strict at all by those standards. He was an avaduta. Lord Chaitanya wouldn't even meet a king who was a pure devotee, a Paramhamsa king. He wouldn't even meet him because he was a king. And yet he was praising, when Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya approached Lord Chaitanya, please meet this king, Prataparudra. Lord Chaitanya said, it is more dangerous than drinking poison willingly to meet this king for one in the renounced order of life. He was very strict. If you ask me again, I will leave this place. You will not know where I go. And considering he was just away for 2 years in South India, this was really traumatic for devotees. What to do? He was so strict. And when Prataparudra finally met Lord Chaitanya after surrendering his heart and willing to give up everything and all these different methods of the devotees, he finally did it in disguise. And Lord Chaitanya is praising Nityananda Prabhu for going into bars and brothels, saying, if you see Nityananda Prabhu going, holding hands with a very low-class woman, you should offer your obeisances to him. Because he's only trying to spread Krishna consciousness all over the world. So here is an avaduta who's being told to go to people like Jagais and Madhais and everybody else. No restrictions. He's an avaduta. And Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is very, very orthodox Swami in so many ways. So there's some diversity here. And they're Krishna Balaram. They're brothers, they're friends in every way. When Lord Chaitanya was a Grihastha in Navadvip, he invited Nityananda to his house. He said, Sachi Devi wants you to come and have prasad at our house. He said, but please, don't act strange. And Nityananda said, why are you saying I act strange? You're the one that acts strange. I never act strange. And then Nityananda came and he got in such a state, all his clothes fell off. Lord Chaitanya had to take his own clothes and put it on Lord Nityananda. So unity and diversity. And then we have Gadadhar Pandit. He was such a simple, strict brahmachari. His whole life he was just so simple, so absolutely simple. It's described when he was brought by Mukunda Dutt to see Pundarik Vidyanidhi, he saw that Pundarik Vidyanidhi he was told he was a great Vaishnav. And yet he was wearing ornaments and jewelry, and he had very fragrant oils in his hair. And he was sitting on a beautiful bed, and he was looking at himself in the mirror and smiling. And he was thinking, what kind of Vaishnava is this? Because Gadadhar Pandit was a really simple brahmachari. He had no possessions, he had nothing. He just loved Krishna. And he's one of the Panchatattva. And Nityananda Prabhu, it describes that one devotee, he came to Lord Chaitanya and said, I don't understand this Nityananda Prabhu. He's supposed to. This is before he got married or anything. He was wearing beautiful jewels and gold and silver and silks. And this devotee asked Lord Chaitanya, I don't understand this Nityananda Prabhu. Why is he dressed like this? Why does he have to dress like this? You know, he's so opulent, so elegant. And Lord Chaitanya, who's staunch sannyasi, only wore a little saffron cloth. And he slept on the floor. And when Shivananda Sain brought him, when Jagadananda Pandit brought him some sandalwood oil for his massage, he said, give it to Jagannath. I will not accept it. And when he gave him a little mat to sleep on, Lord Chaitanya said, no, I will not accept it. He was so simple. But here this person is saying, you're Nityananda, you know what he's wearing? He's wearing the most expensive, exquisite silks and diamonds and rubies and pearls, and he decorates all over his body with this. And Lord Chaitanya was so happy to hear this. He said, Lord Nityananda, he said, those ornaments are the personifications of the 9 processes of devotional service. Every jewel and pearl and piece of silver and gold and silk on his body is a personification of the 9 processes of devotional service, ornamenting his body. So they were 2 very different persons in many ways, but how they completely appreciated each other. Unity and diversity. This is the example Lord Chaitanya taught by how he actually manifested his pastimes in this world. And there's Gadadhar Pandit, simple brahmachari. And then there's Advaitacharya. Advaita, he's the leader of all the Brahmins. And one of the missions of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was to crush the Smarta Brahmin misconceptions. And Advaita was the leader of the Brahmins. He wasn't a Smarta Brahmin, but he was connected. He had 6 children. Wonderful wife, Sita Thakurani. He had several homes. He had a very nice home in Shantipur. He had a nice home in Navadvip. And he was honored and respected as the leader of the whole Brahmin community. And he loved to cook and serve the devotees. And Advaitacharya, in those days, being a Brahmin was, especially a high-level leader of Brahmins, was like the highest position you could have. And who was Advaitacharya's very, very best friend? Haridas Thakur. They were like inseparable brothers. Advaitacharya is married with 6 children, has a nice house, is a Brahmin, is honored and respected by all the Brahmins. And Haridas Thakur he wasn't exactly a sannyasi because he wasn't within the varnashram system in that sense, but he was a total renunciate. He lived in caves and little thatched huts. from the Smarta Brahman perception, he was not honored and worshipped like Advaita. He was an untouchable. In those days, if someone like Haridas Thakur's birth to the Smarta Brahman community, if his shadow touches you, you have to jump in the Ganges. That's how strict they were. One of Srila Prabhupada's godbrothers from Bangladesh, who was from a Brahmin family, he once told me how much distress, total distress and disgrace he gave to his family when he joined Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's Gaudiya Math. Because these were very powerful, learned Brahmins from orthodoxy. And he told me that if an untouchable person walked by their house and their shadow touched the house, they would throw everything in the house out. And they would wash the entire house with cow dung and water, Ganges water. And then they would have to get new pots and everything and fill them up with new water and new food. They couldn't use anything because everything was contaminated. This was serious. This is the way they lived. He said, this is the way our community lived. And then when he was just like a teenager, early 20s, whatever, when he joined Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, with the flag of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, was teaching that doesn't matter, Haridas Thakur, he's our Namacharya. That we accept anybody from anywhere as being pure, worshipable Vaishnavas if they surrender to Krishna. You know, we get a little tiny hint of what the orthodoxy was in the olden days if a Westerner tries to go into Jagannath's temple in Puri. You're not allowed. And if you sneak in, God knows what will happen to you. You really have to surrender to Jagannath in such a situation. So this personality became a disciple of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and was preaching to everybody without discrimination, giving everything. And the mother and father and the whole relatives, they were just it was a total disgrace. They broke through these principles. So you can imagine the leader of the Brahmins 500 years ago, Advaitacharya, what a statement he made to everybody around him when his dearest best friend was Haridas Thakur. They would chant together, they would sing together. And according to Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat and Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Advaitacharya was doing his Shalagram Shila Puja and offering, he heard from the Gautamiya Tantra that if you offer Ganges water and tulsi leaves to Lord Krishna, then he will fulfill your desires. So when he heard that, he was very enthusiastic. He was offering Ganges water and tulsi leaves and praying to Krishna to descend into this world to spread pure bhakti, love of Godhead. And meanwhile, Haridas Thakur, who was living close by in a cave, he was constantly chanting his 300,000 names with the prayer that Krishna would descend to spread pure bhakti throughout the world. So these two personalities were very prominent in bringing Lord Chaitanya to this world. And they're such different personalities. And it's described in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita that when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu actually advented, when he took birth from the womb of Sachi Devi in Sri Navadvip Mayapur, Advaita and Haridas were together at that moment because it was the lunar eclipse. They were in Shantipur. And as the eclipse was happening, everybody was chanting the holy names, and they could feel in their hearts something ecstatic. They hadn't gotten the news yet on a physical level that Krishna has descended, but they felt such happiness in their hearts. They were dancing, they were crying, they were embracing, because they could feel deep within that their prayer had been answered. Brothers. And Srivas Thakur, he was a grihasta who had to undergo so many difficulties. Narada Muni is a very powerful personality. But he took such a helpless kind of condition as Srivas Thakur. So many people were criticizing him. So many people were threatening him because he was having kirtans all the time. People were disturbed by his kirtan. They were calling his kirtan, they were saying it was polluting the environment, that it was offensive, that Vishnu would destroy him and the whole village because they're chanting these names out loud, these secret mantras. A few years ago at Radha Gopinath Temple, one of our neighbors came up to me and said, why is your people in your temple polluting? Why are you contaminating the entire environment with noise pollution by singing so loud? I was so happy to hear that. It was almost as if this person had studied Chaitanya Charitamrita and was quoting exactly what people used to say to Srivas Thakur. There's the beautiful story. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was doing his all-night kirtan in Srivas's house. And Nityananda Prabhu was there, Haridas Thakur, Murari Gupta, Gadadhar, all of this. What an assembly of great Vaishnavas. Mukunda Dutt, Vasudev Dutt. They're all singing and dancing. And in another room, because they would do it in the courtyard, in one of the rooms, Srivas Thakur's son was seriously ill with a high fever. And the mother and the aunties and the uncles and they were back there, especially the ladies, because most of the men were out there dancing and singing. They were trying to somehow or other nurse this little child back to health. And during the kirtan, the child died. So they were crying. And Srivas could feel that there was some sadness in the house. And he went back there and he saw his little son dead. And obviously he was feeling. He's a father. It's not that, becoming transcendental doesn't mean you become inhuman. This is a fine this is a fine point of philosophy that is often misunderstood. Being transcendental doesn't mean you're not human anymore. Narottam is the greatest Vaishnav, is supremely human. That means the supreme human, Narottam. It means we still have feelings, we still have, but to the highest, purest, most compassionate, loving degree on this spiritual platform we're humans. Srila Prabhupada dealt with this world as such a perfect human being coming from that completely ecstatic platform of love of God. And Prabhupada told us that you should be perfect ladies and gentlemen. And especially in England, I think you could understand what that means. Because it's kind of like the standard of the world for ladies and gentlemen in that sense. But the perfect, to the highest, deepest degree, as Vaishnavas. So Srivas comes in and sees his little child, a little son, is dead. But he had such deep faith and love for Lord Chaitanya. He was thinking in terms not about himself or what sorrow he could feel or not feel. He was really thinking about the child. He said, how fortunate. I wish I could die like this. He died right when Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda and everybody, all of the devotees are loudly chanting the holy names in ecstatic love in our house. What an auspicious way to leave this world. He was so selfless. He said, if Lord Chaitanya hears about this, he's going to become very sad. Lord Chaitanya, even though he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the ultimate person, still, his human side will feel sad if he hears that he dies. And now he's enjoying kirtan, and our life is his enjoyment. So do not make any sound of crying to disturb his bliss in Sankirtan. And Srivas said, if you disturb Lord Chaitanya's ecstasy of kirtan by giving him even a hint that there's any sadness in our house, he said, I will take ropes and tie them to pots and put water and rocks in the pots, and I'll put them around my neck and jump in the Ganges. That was quite a... So they were very quiet. They were crying quietly. And Srivas came out and was dancing with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Why was he dancing? He was dancing because he wanted Lord Chaitanya to see him happy. Because seeing him happy made him happy. This is the inconceivable nature of a devotee. Krishna likes to see us happy. So ultimately, we're not happy because we want to be happy. We're happy because Krishna likes it. Krishna's happy when we're happy. Does that make sense? It doesn't make sense. But it does, at least on our level. There's no selfishness. Everything's for Krishna. The gopis, they say, Krishna, if you come back to Vrindavan, we will be so happy. But actually, they know if Krishna comes back to Vrindavan, he will be happy. So they're saying we will be happy because they know that he wants them to be happy. But actually, they just want him to be happy. There's no selfishness. So Srivas is smiling and blissfully dancing, and Lord Chaitanya is blissfully dancing, and hours go by, and Lord Chaitanya, he stops the kirtan. He said, I feel some sadness in this house. What happened? He said, Srivas, is there something happened in this house? And Srivas said, a effulgent smile on his face. He said, my Lord, nothing could be inauspicious when you are dancing in my house. That's all. Then one other devotee said, actually, Lord Chaitanya, his son died. Lord Chaitanya said, what? His son died? Lord Chaitanya was very affected. He said his son died. When? He said, many hours ago. He said, well, why didn't you tell me? He said, Srivas wouldn't let any of us tell you because he didn't want to disturb your happiness. And Lord Chaitanya then began to cry. He was weeping. His voice was choked up. He said, how could I ever repay? How could I ever understand the love of Srivas? In his love for me to make me happy, he's putting aside the pain of his own son's death. It was incredible. Lord Chaitanya said, because he knew he was very soon going to take sannyas, and he was going to leave Navadvip. And he became so emotional, with tears. He said something nobody could understand. He said, how is it possible that I'm going to be able to live without such a pure surrendered devotee as Srivas in my association? How will I be able to live without him? And everyone was thinking, what does he mean by that? And he was crying. Can you imagine how difficult it was for Lord Chaitanya to take sannyas, to give up the company of Srivas? He was expressing it at that point. And then Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu he said, bring me to the child. And they brought him to the little child, who was just laying there, dead. It was just a corpse. There was nobody home. And the ladies were all there, his mother, Malini, and they were, crying, trying to come to grips with it. And Lord Chaitanya, with great emotion, he touched the child's chest over his heart and said, my child, why have you left your father's house? And then the little boy, he was laying on his back, he opened his eyes, and everyone was very astounded. And then he sat up. And then he started to talk. Because Lord Chaitanya asked him a question. He had to answer the question. Can you imagine the pin-drop silence of that class that he gave? Everyone was there. There was Advaita and Gadadhar and Haridas and Murari and Sridhar and all these devotees are, as he's looking up at Lord Chaitanya answering his question. Essentially, he said, I am your servant. We are all ultimately your servants. And wherever you want us, that is where we go. By your mercy, you allowed me to take birth in the house of Srivas, where I got to do all these beautiful kirtans and all this wonderful satsang. And now you are sending me, the soul, to a different body, to another place. Wherever you want me to go, I am surrendered to you. I'm happy to go. Just let me never forget you, wherever I may be. To be with your devotees, that's my prayer. And when the devotees heard him speaking, they understood that he had attained the highest perfection. And they were all happy. They were all in ecstasy. Even the mother. In agony that the child's gone from their association, but in ecstasy that the child had attained Lord Chaitanya's supreme mercy. And then after speaking these words, the little boy laid down again and was dead. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, his human side, he didn't just walk away. He said, let us perform the last rites. And they put the little child on a little carrier, and they brought him down to the Ganga, and they performed the funeral ceremony, and Lord Chaitanya was right there as part of it. And then they performed from the Ganga. They came back to Srivasa's house after taking their bath. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, all the devotees, they were so moved by this scene. The relatives of Srivas and Srivas himself, they were all falling at the feet of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. They were saying, in whatever birth you want us to take, whether it's humans or animals or birds, whatever, let us never give up the shelter of your loving lotus feet. You are so loving, you are so kind, you are so merciful. We want nothing but your loving service and to be with those people who love you. Wherever you want to take us, wherever you want to send us, doesn't matter. Just let us never forget that you are our ultimate well-wisher. And let us be with those who love you. And Lord Chaitanya became very, very choked up, and he embraced Lord Nityananda, and he said, Srivas, you may have lost this son, but please know forever, Lord Nityananda and myself, we are your sons. A formal proclamation. This is Panchatattva. Then shortly after that, Lord Chaitanya took sannyas. He left his mother, Sachi Devi, and Srivas, and everybody. And when Lord Chaitanya took sannyas, Srivas couldn't stay in Navadvip anymore. Can you imagine? For a full year, every night, all night, from sunrise, from sunset till after sunrise, Lord Chaitanya was having kirtan in Srivasa's house. And many times all day. So after Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepts sannyas, he's never going to return to Navadvip. That was their understanding. Srivas, his love for Lord Chaitanya, he couldn't look at those rooms. He couldn't look at his courtyard anymore because the separation was so deep. So he moved out of Navadvip and went to Kumarahata, which is the birthplace of Ishwara Puri, Lord Chaitanya's guru. And there he resided with his family. And one day, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to Kumarahata. And he came to the house of Srivas there. And he said, Srivas, why don't you get a job? How do you maintain your family? Now, we can't imitate Srivas. Don't think you Grihastas, you can follow the spirit of Srivas, but don't try to imitate him. We have to be responsible. He said, neither you have a job, neither do you go out begging like a Brahmin. You just chant all day. You have a family. You have a big family, actually, and you have a house and everything. How are you going to maintain it? And Srivas said, no problem. The Lord Chaitanya said, but we have to take responsibility. You have a responsibility for all these people. How will you maintain? And he smiled and clapped his hands and said, 1, 2, 3. That's my answer. Now, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu he knows everything. He's within everyone's heart. But externally, I said, what is this? What kind of answer is that? How are you going to take responsibility for your family if you're just home chatting all the time? And he smiled and said, 1, 2, 3. And Lord Chaitanya said, please explain, what is this 1, 2, 3? Srivas said, if in the lapse of time of clapping my hands 3 times, 1, 2, 3, if I'm not provided whatever I need for my whole family and everything when I'm chanting your holy names, then I will take ropes and tie it around my neck and tie those ropes to full pots, and I will jump in the Ganges and end my life. This is not just poetry. He actually meant it. You can't just speak to Lord Chaitanya things that you want to make him happy by your empty words. When you come before Krishna, we should understand Krishna is here. Radharani, Gokulananda, Sitaram, Lakshman, Hanuman, Mahaprabhu, Sri Chaitanya, Nityananda. When we come before them, they are personally, fully present. We can't just speak empty words thinking that they're going to like my words. We have to mean it. Srivas meant it. And Lord Chaitanya, when he heard those words, he roared in ecstasy. And he said, Srivas, your faith in the holy name, your total surrender is so great that I declare this promise. Even if there is a total disastrous drought within this entire world, so much so that Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune, has to go begging door to door. He said, I declare that you will never have a shortage of anything because of your total faith in the chanting of Krishna's names and in Krishna's mercy. We cannot imitate. Srivas' life and soul was serving the devotees, serving the Lord through kirtan. So, in this brief but overtime class of mine today, we can get some sense of the incredible diversity of the Panchatattva and the dynamics of their interactions with each other. And how the Panchatattva drew in so many devotees of so many different categories. Ultimately, at Srivas's house, you know who became regular features in their kirtans at one point? Jagai and Madhai. They were dancing in ecstasy, bumping into the devotees and everything like that. They became brothers on the transcendental platform. And the more they tasted the ecstasies of love of God, the more they wanted to distribute it to more and more people. Paradukaduki. A devotee, another person's happiness is our happiness. Another person's suffering is our suffering. And that's especially on the spiritual platform. One could be young and healthy and wealthy and famous, but without Krishna, their soul is suffering. We want to give them real happiness, beyond the shadow-like, temporary, fleeting happiness of the mind and senses. And as we taste that happiness, but you see, if we don't taste it, we can't give it. I'll end with this simple lesson that Srila Prabhupada is teaching us here. If we don't have something, we can't give something. Srila Prabhupada gave us this balance. We chant at least 16 rounds, hopefully. We follow these regulative principles. We regularly read from the Srimad Bhagavatam. We attend the classes where we discuss the principles of Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita. We read these books, we discuss these books, we teach from these books. As we're tasting, we're getting filled with this prasad, with this mercy. And if we're actually doing it right, Srila Prabhupada, who's giving us everything, we're feeling grateful. Gratitude is not just a concept. Gratitude is reciprocal. He's asking us to share what He's giving us with others. So as we're tasting, we want to share it with the world. This is the principle of the Panchatattva. This is the principle that Srila Prabhupada personified in such a exalted way. And this is the principle that we have inherited as our very life and soul. To taste the sweetness of Sankirtan. To taste the sweetness of Srimad Bhagavatam Chaitanya Charitamrita. To taste the sweetness of the darshan of Shri Radha Gokulananda Radha Vandanishwar. To taste the sweetness of actual, genuinely, properly motivated Vaishnava association. To taste the sweetness of seva. And then to be willing to make even great sacrifices to distribute what we are tasting with the world. And even if we're not tasting it so much, we're eating it anyway. And we're trying to distribute what Prabhupada is tasting to the world. What the Panchatattva is tasting to the world. This is the most wonderful gift that there is. Just imagine. Here is the Panchatattva. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivas Adi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. And we're that Adi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. We could be a little place in there. All of us are some little tiny specks. We're in that mantra. Adi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. We can be devotees of the Panchatattva. And we're reading about this exalted quality of how they're plundering the treasure house of love of God. They're eating it and they're distributing it into the world. And we could help them. It's thrilling, absolutely thrilling. By Prabhupada's mercy. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Hari Bol.